I hear an amen?
They thought he was a gift given to them by God. They just thought the world of it.
Something always felt wrong about it. It just didn't hit me in my gut right.
You cannot be the pastor of a church with a sexual conviction crime.
Tim Tillman was an evil, conniving person. Whatever it took to get it, he would get it.
The coldest person that I have come across.
Vincent, Alabama has a population of about 2,000 people.
Everybody knows everybody. Feel like you can leave your door unlocked if you wanted to, or leave your keys in the car if need be.
We're willing to help each other in any way possible.
Is the person you're married to like a business partner you can just move on from when things get tough?
I was a member of Vincent Revival Center, and that's where I first met Tim Tillman.
When the going gets tough, the tough get going home to sort it out.
He was probably the best speaker I'd ever heard from the pulpit.
When you go home today, all you husbands, you tell your wives you appreciate them. Amen.
He understood how to work the crowd, if that's the right word.
Marriage is a covenant with God.
His charisma made it excitable to be at church. I looked at him as a mentor.
Tim Tillman arrived with his wife at the Vincent Revival Center, Alabama in 2003, after 10 years spreading the gospel in pulpits from Florida to Minnesota.
We really thought, in the terms, we'd hit a home run when we were able to hire him as our pastor. Typically at the end of a service, he would greet everyone as they came out of the church.
I do good.
And everybody was, "Oh, Pastor Tillman, that was a great sermon today."
Truly inspiring. Thank you so much.
And he tended to eat that up.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Janet Tillman was the most precious person. She was very humble. She was a wonderful mother, a wonderful pastor's wife. Tim was the preacher, but Janet was the glue that held it together.
I think she really strove hard to be the perfect wife. She was always there to support him.
They had two daughters. Jessica was the oldest and Tiffany was the youngest.
I saw Janet as the person who made Tim look good.
Pastor Tillman believes charity is at the core of his mission. When Hurricane Katrina hits Louisiana, he sees it as an opportunity to bring the community together.
Tim brought the idea about raising money for the Katrina disaster down in Louisiana. He offered the idea of a turkey shoot. You would have to walk over to a table, pay the money to get one shell. You would be directed to put the shell in, and then you'd be directed to shoot. At the end of the third turkey shoot, there was a gun that was jammed. So it was obviously no longer usable.
Another church member offers to take the broken gun away to get it fixed.
And Tim just turned around and saying, "No, I just want to take the guns home with me. I'll keep them all with me. I appreciate it, though."
He told Janet, "Hey, we need to put these guns in the house for safekeeping."
I don't want to leave them in the church where the kids are at. It's too dangerous.
So Janet takes one of the guns in and goes in first, and then he takes the two other guns.
Tim's plan is to put the guns under the bed while they're being stored at his house. Janet went into the bedroom first and was approaching the bed. Tim went in behind her.
The gun hit the side of the doorpost and went off 3 feet from her back.
Janet is lying there telling Tim that she loves him and that she loves the girls. Janet is bleeding to death.
I come out of the church and I look up there at the house, and there was ambulances, police, and various first responders. When I got there, it was very intense. Tim had his hands over his face, talking about, what have I done, what have I done? Just kind of saying that over and over and over.
When I got out of the car, someone met us and said, Janet did not make it. My heart was breaking for the two girls. They were distraught, they were sobbing. I wanted to be sobbing too, but I felt like I had to be strong for them.
The police came in and said, we need Tim to go downtown to the police station to give a statement. I thought that's awful.
I'm sorry, Janet.
Try to be supportive for him and let him know that we're there to help him. There's really nothing you can say. You can just be there.
I don't know what happened. I was following her behind, and she had one gun, and I was carrying two, and I don't know how it went off.
The idea that he's going to live now with this accident, it was very heartbreaking. It was tragic. You wish you could change it, but you can't.
After they talked to the girls, my husband told me that they were going to our house to stay.
We were so concerned for Tim that they pulled all the knives out of the drawers. We thought he was a suicide threat.
God, give your grace this night to Tim, Jessica, Tiffany. Reveal yourself to them, Lord, so that they might understand what has happened this night.
Across town, Janet's sister, Joan Croft, learns the heartbreaking news.
The night Janet died, we had already gone to bed. Your mind just kind of goes crazy.
There's been an accident.
My first thought was, oh my God, what are these girls gonna do? So I called my brother. And I said, Janet's dead. His first thought was, no accident.
It just didn't hit me in my gut right. Something always felt wrong about it.
Detectives questioned Tillman about the shooting. With no reason to hold him, they let him go home to his daughters. As a formality, they run his name through their system.
They checked his license in the database. That's something that they would check as a matter of routine.
The result is far from routine. Investigators are surprised to learn the pastor has 2 driver's licenses, one under his own name and a second under the name Timothy Patrick McNally.
So, 4 months ago, changed his name to McNally. And then a couple weeks ago, he changed it right back to Tillman.
The name change back to Tim Tillman from Tim McNally happened a matter of days before the killing.
It's a red flag for police. Tim Tillman is a man with secrets. Across town, Janet's family also harbor suspicions about the charismatic pastor.
He led us to believe that Janet's family did not like him.
I took her away from their church. I don't even know if they'll speak to me. They've never forgiven me.
I thought, here's a man who's lost his wife, and I felt sorry for him.
Come in.
from the minute they walked up on the porch.
Hey.
There was so much tension.
When we arrived, that was one of the most awkward times probably in my life.
Charles.
He wanted to shake my hand. I told him not yet.
Not until I got the whole story.
Never once did he look at my parents and say, "I'm so sorry."
I never hurt her on purpose. Never!
He said how much he loved Janet and he would never hurt her. My gut said something wasn't right.
A few days later, I sent an email to the district attorney explaining that my sister had been killed and we really thought that they needed to investigate it.
Detective Scott Bartle of the Alabama Bureau of Investigation is assigned to the case.
The email said that they were not sure if Vincent Police Department would have the resources to adequately investigate the case. I went down to the town of Vincent to meet with Chief Shrigley with the police department. We sat down and I watched the video of the interview. One thing that stood out to me was how Tim Tillman was acting. The only thing I can compare it to is the Wizard of Oz, the Cowardly Lion, because he'd go, ooh, oh, and then he'd look up over at the clock to see what time it was. I couldn't understand that. It was just highly suspicious to me.
Vincent police also tell Detective Bartle about Tim Tillman's 2 driver's licenses.
My plan was to check into Tim's background, find out where he had lived before, just kind of recreate his past and try to find out more information about Tillman.
Detective Bartle discovers that Pastor Tillman has a past that is far from saintly.
Tim always had a thing for women. He always ended up with a girlfriend or going places that a married man shouldn't be going, like strip clubs. Janet had put up with everything he had done.
In 1995, 8 years before he turned up in Alabama, Tim Tillman was spotted leaving a Florida strip club. Fired from his ministry, he drove 2,000 miles north to Minnesota. He was again cast from his church after a sleazy affair with a member of his congregation.
He started working as a jailer, and he liked to say he was a police officer, but he wasn't. He just worked as a civilian at the jail, where he just basically checked people in and out. One day, they brought this prostitute in. He offered to take her home. And instead, he pulled over in a parking lot and, according to her, forced her to have oral sex.
Hey, how y'all doing?
They investigated it and subsequently charged him. He was sentenced to 6 months in the jail up there in Minnesota.
It was too much for Janet. And I said, "Janet, at some point, sweetheart, you're gonna have to give up on him."
Would you mind if me and the girls came there to be near you?
And I said, "Of course, Janet. We're even looking for some help in my office, and I can probably get you a job."
With her cheating husband behind bars, Janet and her daughters moved south to Alabama to be close to her sister Joan.
Everything was going good, and then Tim called. He said, they let me out early. I want to surprise her when she gets home.
Please forgive me, Janet. Please.
I think she hoped that he meant it. She always had hope that things would be better.
Girls? It's your dad?
She felt like the girls needed their daddy.
Oh, my goodness.
I was disappointed that she let him come back. I thought that Janet would do real well on her own.
The family is reunited, and Tim Tillman vows to keep the past behind him.
They started attending the Assembly of God in Westover, and he got to know the pastor real well and started speaking occasionally there at that church and other churches from time to time. When the opening came to replace the minister at the Vincent Revival Center, Janet said, "There's a big part of me that hopes this doesn't happen, because every time he gets into situations and we have to leave."
Tim came to us nearly 2 years before Janet died. In January of 2003, we were without a pastor. And during that time, we have people come to speak just for a particular Sunday, and that's the role that Tim was in that day. He was not there as a prospective pastor at all.
As his children, we obey. Otherwise, look at the mess we leave behind us, my friends.
But then after he did such a good job, some of the church members said, well, why can't we get this guy?
Can I hear an amen?
He convinced us that here's a guy, anointed of God, very, very talented in the pulpit, very knowledgeable of scriptures, a family man. He seems to be the whole package.
Tillman secures the job as senior pastor and prays the church doesn't discover his conviction for soliciting a prostitute.
I knew that if he had presented the information of his conviction for a sexual crime in Minnesota, that he would not be preaching. I contacted the superintendent of the Assemblies of God and talked with them about Tim and how he got to be a preacher there.
Could I speak to the secretary in charge of pastor appointments, please?
The church does a background check on any incoming pastor. Tim Tillman put them off and put them off and put them off.
He would say, "Oh, I lost it," or somebody spilled milk on it, or that kind of thing.
I thought it was suspicious, but it didn't have anything to do with him shooting Janet. Also, whatever he did in Minnesota, it just didn't explain the name change. Something ain't right. I was frustrated because I couldn't find the right piece of the puzzle to really get it going. I needed the centerpiece to build upon.
Unaware of investigators' growing suspicions, Pastor Tillman draws on the love and support of his congregation.
The whole community rallied around Tim and the girls. There were people who would give Tim gifts, monetary gifts.
People are being so kind.
Of course, it was no secret that Janet's salary had been lost.
Just weeks after Janet's death, Tim Tillman says he wants to leave his daughters and go away for a few days.
Sue, Harold, I think I want to go on retreat.
Tim mentioned something about going on a pastor's retreat, pastor's conference to Washington State.
Washington?
Yeah.
It's the first inkling among church members that all may not be as it seems.
Between here and Washington State, there has to be 1,000 different pastor's retreats you can go on. And so why would you go all the way to Washington State for one? Seemed a bit odd.
But We felt like it was important for his well-being that this take place. He's fragile, and he needs to go get help. We still were under the perception that he was going to be our pastor. We were still holding on to that.
Meanwhile, Detective Bartle discovers that Tim Tillman already has suspected links to Washington.
We obtained cell phone records. I could see a lot of communication to a number that was in Washington State. I tried to identify the number, and I got the name Molly. Now, there was a religious retreat that he had been to in Washington. But why would you be talking to Molly at 11 o'clock at night? I mean, that's not normal business hours. It was just highly suspicious to me. But I knew I needed something more.
2 months have passed since Janet died. Tillman returns from his retreat. He tries to pick up a new life with his 2 daughters.
Daddy? Who's that lady?
No one, just an old friend. Go back to bed, honey. I said, go back to bed, Tiffany.
Tiffany called and was crying, and she told me that she had gotten into an argument with her dad because she had read some correspondence he was having with Molly. And he told her that, yes, he was attracted to her, and she said, I don't think it's been long enough after my mother's death.
You know, you can come and see me anytime you want.
That's the first time I'd heard the name Molly.
Bye.
From that day on, my relationship with Tim Tillman was not the same.
It began to become more polarizing, that those that supported Tim supported him to the hilt. But now there was a line that was starting to be drawn, and those that had suspicions, they were kind of coming over here to this other side saying something ain't right.
Janet's sister has also talked to Tiffany and decides to call the police.
Scott Bartle.
I received a telephone call from Joan. There's a rumor that Tim may have a girlfriend called Molly. That's when everything kind of really started coming together. I'm starting to see a picture of somebody that killed their wife. What was really going on is he was emailing his mistress, who was living in Washington State. He was planning his religious trips in order to meet with her. You would think that if your wife just died in an accident, that 4 or 5 weeks post-death, you're not rolling around in the bed with somebody else.
Now, hot on the trail of the lecherous preacher, Detective Bartle digs into Tillman's email history.
He first engaged with Molly over the computer about 10 years prior. Started off as an anonymous communication, so to speak.
I think part of the fun to him was getting away with doing something that wasn't right. Janet worked lots of hours, and there's nobody looking over his shoulder.
When he found out more about Molly and that her dad was in the military, I think that's when Tim decided to create this Timothy McNally.
He used a different name. So if anything ever did come up with Janet, that he could say, well, that wasn't me.
It wasn't just his name he changed. He claimed he was a high-ranking naval officer.
He dressed as a lieutenant commander in the Navy to impress Molly.
I can imagine him going into an Army surplus store where they would have some uniforms and picking out the parts that would make him look good, and making this story that he's been telling her over the months very believable to her.
The deeper Detective Bartle digs, the more he suspects the shooting accident was far from accidental.
Whenever you have someone that has a mistress on the side, and your wife is shot in the back, there's a motive. However, Scott had a lot to do to take it to another level, to get him to a point where he had a case.
If he's got a girlfriend, he can show her he's got a driver's license with Timothy Patrick McNally. That validates who he's saying he is. He doesn't have to worry about her showing up at his house or trying to locate him when he's going back to Vincent to be with Janet.
6 months have passed since Janet was shot dead. Despite Detective Bartle's suspicions, he has nothing concrete on Tillman.
I remember wondering, why would someone murder their wife instead of divorcing? Maybe Tim was thinking, if he was divorced, he could not be a preacher. So if Janet is dead, then they don't have to worry about that.
Janet's family is clamoring for answers.
I was getting very frustrated at that point. Seemed like nothing was being done. I was consumed with this whole thing. I'm not hearing from the ABI, I'm not hearing from the DA's office, I'm not hearing from anybody. I felt like they didn't think it was important.
The Alabama Bureau of Investigation called us. He had information about Tim Tillman that he needed to discuss with me and other church members.
I was down there, beating the bush, so to speak. I knew that he had killed Janet. I knew it. I was just trying to figure out a plan to prove it.
He showed me a picture of Tim, and Tim was in a Navy SEAL uniform, and you could see a nameplate, and it had McNally.
Did you know that Tim changed his name to McNally in May of 2005? And then back to Tillman, 6 days before he shot his wife?
They told us that in other churches that he had been at, he would go and he would only be there for 2 or 3, 4 years because there would be a discrepancy about him and another woman or him and money issues.
I looked at him and I said, we were fools.
I felt spiritually raped. You feel totally betrayed.
After the meeting with Scott, I felt that Tim was guilty. Tim Tillman killed Janet, and it wasn't an accident.
Following our meeting, I kind of figured that the word would get out that Tim was under the microscope.
Tillman's congregation struggle with the growing uncertainty over Janet's death.
Before Janet died, each Sunday morning, as people left church, there would be a lot of joy, happiness.
Thank you.
But now, as we left the church, you didn't see that joy anymore.
I had gone from feeling sorry for Tim to feeling distrust about him.
Out of the blue, Tillman springs a surprise.
Harold, can I talk to you for a second?
Sure. He informed us that he was going to resign as our pastor.
I think it's for the best.
I think I felt a sense of relief.
One side said, I'm glad this is over. The other side said, man, I hate to see him leave. He still had his supporters, and they were very strong supporters.
Tillman tells his congregation he's taking the girls and moving back to Florida to be near his family.
It was a tough decision to have to watch him leave the state of Alabama. I thought that he might get away with murder. To go ahead and arrest him and put him in jail for the murder of Janet. You have to be able to prove a case.
Thank you so much.
Scott found out lots of clues, but nothing solid that built him anywhere close to proving a murder.
I would suspect that Tim thought he had gotten away with it. He'd only been interviewed that one time, and that police believed him.
Just when Detective Bartle fears that Tillman has slipped through his fingers, he catches a lucky break. Janet's sister Joan tells him of a curious phone call she's just received.
Sitting at my desk at the office and my phone rings and they ask for Janet.
Janet no longer works here.
It was this loan company. I asked when this loan was taken out. They said January of '06. Janet was killed in October of '05. My first thought was that Tim had used her name, her good credit, and gotten a loan.
It was $5,000, and it was a month or two after her death. I knew that I had an opportunity to get Tillman and arrest him.
Arresting Tillman for fraud will also give Detective Bartle the chance to question him about the night he killed his wife.
This interview has to be played out very carefully. Tim Tillman will have gotten away with murder. He's only going to get one shot at it.
I felt confident that if he would tell me what had happened, he would end up confessing to killing Janet. The forgery opened the door for me to get Tim to explain about Janet's death. From what I have researched on Tim, he would not be able to keep his mouth shut. I knew that he was going to try to preach to me and try to make me believe that it was an accident. And at a certain point, Tim was going to lose his cool. And he was going to start screaming and hollering and turning all red in the face and become very angry. I prepared myself to the point where I knew what he was going to say and how he was going to act, and I knew that at a certain point I was going to try to pressure him to get him to cough up the information, and somewhat scripted the interview process.
Detective Bartle travels to Florida for the all-important interview. Needling Tillman into revealing new evidence is his best hope of nailing him for murder.
They have to confront him with every single piece of information that points to this murder being intentional.
You're always nervous in a case. Everybody has a fear of failure. This was a big interview. I knew if I could not get information from him that he would get away with it. When we sat down to interview him, it was just casual, nice, just conversation. And I started my line of questioning with him about, well, tell me about the forgery.
I did it after the accident. After Janet died, we lost her income.
He does what liars often do. He confesses what he knows he has to confess. If I don't confess this makes me obviously a liar.
I just wanted to pay for her headstone.
I kind of leaned on the table and propped my head up and said, you really have me intrigued about this accident.
Can you draw me a house or anything like that? Because I can't picture. I'm kind of silly at times, I guess.
Scott is playing dumb, and it plays right in to what Tim wants.
When I came through, I kind of shifted the guns, and when I did, they discharged. Ooh, what'd you do after that?
Some aw-shucks, hayseed investigator from back in Alabama, and that's what Scott is presenting to him.
So, when the gun discharged, it was like that?
And I really started probing. What do you mean when the gun was like this? What do you mean the gun went off?
If the shotgun discharges, it's got an explosion that thrusts it back. Recoil. Right, recoil. There you go, that's a good word.
All the time giving Tim just this level of comfort that he's going to be able to control this interview, and ultimately this is going to be over, and he's going to be able to get right back to that life that he started, and he will have gotten away with murder.
I remember dropping the guns. From where? and about chest level.
One story, you're walking in and the gun mysteriously goes off.
Which was contradictory to what you told me earlier, right? Earlier you indicated waist, and now you're saying up chest level.
Another story that the gun slips in your hand.
So how did the gun fire? I don't know how the gun fired.
The end game was to document how the information that he was providing would not add up under the common sense rule.
What I'm saying is that Tim, listen. No, listen. Please stop for a minute and let me talk.
During the course of the interview, he told, I think it was like 7 different ways that it could have happened.
I raised the gun up and you manipulated the trigger. I did not intentionally manipulate the trigger. But you manipulated the trigger. However I did it, I think I mean to do it.
As Tillman gets more agitated, Detective Bartle decides to switch tack. He gets him to explain the name change from Tillman to McNally and back again.
He said he changed his name because his brother had an affair with Janet and that he did not want to be part of the Tillman family.
I actually changed my name for a very short time, and then I thought, this is just stupid. I'm going to alienate myself from my family, and it's dumb.
It's a crazy story, and the cops don't buy it.
I knew he was lying at that point. It just helped solidify that it was a murder. While we're doing this, our counterparts are over at the mistress's house.
As far as his mistress Molly is concerned, the man she's seeing is Timothy McNally, a military officer whose wife died in a tragic accident.
No, it's not right.
They told her that Tim's real name was Timothy Tillman.
No. I have this picture. It has his name on it. How could it have his name on the uniform?
It devastated her. It rocked her world. She had told us they'd met in Mississippi at her parents' house and that they were fixing to get married that weekend. He had told Molly that Janet was in the attic moving some fishing rods and the shotguns fell over and went off and shot her. She started providing information, emails, pictures, different correspondences that she had kept between Tim and her.
These are from him.
This is crucial evidence, and it's fed back to the interview room. Bartle's net is tightening around Pastor Tillman.
When did you get engaged to Molly?
We got engaged the weekend that Hurricane Katrina came through.
And we said, well, why didn't you tell us before? I mean, don't you think that's a critical thing in your story?
2 months exactly.
Prior to Janet's death.
You're engaged to another woman while you're still married. Wow.
So if Janet is dead, then they don't have a problem.
Wanted to be with Molly.
No, that's not it.
You wanted Molly. You were engaged to another.
I did not.
You wanted Molly.
You engaged Molly. I did engage Molly. You're right. I admitted that.
We just kept pressuring him.
I look at my daughter every day and realize that she doesn't have a mother because of what I did.
He starts beating his chest and screaming and hollering.
I didn't mean to kill her. I didn't. No, I didn't.
You wanted Molly to be your new mom.
No, that's not it. Is it? No, it's not. You wanted Molly.
We had struck a nerve with him. We were really on the right trail.
Nobody blames me but me.
Tim had sealed his fate with his own words, his own arrogance. At the end of that interview, I felt confident that I had enough information to get a conviction for the charge of the murder of Janet.
Pastor Tim Tillman is charged with forgery and sent to jail. Despite the incriminating interrogation, investigators don't yet have enough to charge him with murdering his wife.
Tim stayed in the Shelby County Jail, I think it was about 6 months until he made bond. I began building my case against him. We began to monitor his communications outside the jail. and the incoming communications. Initially, Molly, she was hostile towards him and didn't understand why he had changed his name.
I think it's important to understand Tim's ability to pull the wool over Molly's eyes. With him having this life as a Navy SEAL, as far as Molly's concerned, there are things that he just can't talk to her about.
He's very manipulative. He had her believing everything he said, even when he had to change his story to something that was obviously a lie. He convinced her that what he's telling her now is the truth.
He told her that this was part of his mission, that he was assigned to some secret agency of the United States government. And after he gets through doing this mission, it would be over with, and they could go on and live their life.
Meanwhile, Janet's family wonders if they'll ever see justice.
I expected once he was put in jail, they would have investigated enough to get him indicted on the murder. Then all of a sudden he was bailed out and it was like a bubble burst. And we're back to square one.
Detective Bartle wants Tillman to believe he buys his story of how Janet died.
At that point in time, I wanted him to think that the only thing he's got to face is the forgery charge.
Over the next 5 months, while Tim Tillman, now married to Molly, builds a life in Florida, Detective Bartle builds his case.
The case was presented to the Shelby County grand jury, and they chose to indict Timothy Tillman, charged with murder. That was a good moment, probably the #1 moment in my career at that time. We made arrangements to fly down to Florida to pick Tim up.
The preacher has no idea the game is finally up.
When Tim arrived there, his boss called him in.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Tim smiles like nothing's wrong.
We all used to work together, right?
No,
And I told him, "You have never worked with me."
as I remembered, you were working against me. Tim Tillman, you're under arrest for murder.
And his eyes kind of swelled up a little bit, and his knees kind of buckled, and I really thought he was fixing to pass out.
The murder of Janet Rita Tillman.
He knew that the gig was up then.
It's 2 more years before Tim Tillman stands trial for the murder of his wife.
It made me feel good when he got arrested for murder, but I was nervous about the trial. I didn't know for sure if he'd get off or if they would convict him.
Only having circumstantial evidence is always scary.
It was stressful. One slip up could get him off on a technicality.
We knew Tim Tillman was guilty, but a court of law is different.
You've got a circumstantial case to begin with, and that's terrifying for a prosecutor. The defense that they took to trial is exactly the defense that Tim Tillman gave them, all the way down to the bolt action potentially getting stuck in the trigger guard.
How he did it, we don't exactly know. There are a number of ways he could have fired the gun.
The fact Tillman kept changing his story under interrogation is key to the prosecution case.
The defense case was that this person who just so happened to be having an affair, who just so happened to have proposed to his girlfriend 2 months earlier, who just so happened to have a gun that should be unloaded, but on this occasion is loaded, and it just so happens to be pointed directly into his wife's back.
But the prosecution has a killer witness, Jimmy Abbott.
Safety was a critical issue for everybody involved in the turkey shoot at that church. After the turkey shoot, the shotgun would be taken back to a pickup truck where Jimmy Abbott would break it down and both visually and physically inspect the shotgun to to make sure that it was empty, the shell was out, and that it was safe.
There's no doubt those guns were unloaded, except for possibly if Tim Tillman had loaded one.
The jury stands up to read that verdict. My heart almost stopped.
I could feel chill bumps. My mouth dried. Tim had been able to present an image to the people of this good, godly man, and I was afraid that he was going to present that type of image to the jury, and that they would see him as a good, godly man instead of a killer.
And they said, guilty. Janet got justice.
It was like a massive relief off my shoulders. If Tim had not have forged that check, he would have gotten away with murder. He's probably one of the coldest person that I have come across in my lifetime.
As they led him out, he did not turn around and look at his children. He left with no emotion. So much changed from the time I first met Tim Tillman, because he was a man of God, and there were people who came to know the Lord under his preaching, but the correct verdict had been rendered.
Tim Tillman was convicted and sentenced to life in the Alabama Department of Corrections.
Until that time, when we talked about Janet, it was mostly about the mean things that Tim had done to her. After that verdict, we talked about the happy things. I go on the internet from time to time to make sure Tim's where Tim's supposed to be. Other than that, I try to live day to day and be happy. Think about Janet often.